Hello, everybody. Turn my mic off, or not off, up. Let me just make sure that everything sounds alright. I did a test, and it sounded okay, but I just am paranoid and want to make sure. Come on. Hello, hello. Oh, is that a kitty? Hi. Alright, that sounds alright to me. Let us begin then. Yes, so I'm at a slightly different angle today, but I hope that you can still... Oh, kitty. No, go back. Go back, kitty. There she is. There's the face, and then there's some fur, and then there's the tail. Oh, kitty. I'm at a slightly different angle today. I'm trying to avoid having to maneuver the book strangely, so I hope that this works and you can see it, but please let me know if you are unable to read the words. Kitty, are you gonna sit on the book? It's seeming like you are. It's seeming like you're gonna sit on the book, and that's gonna be a problem for me. Oh, don't step on the keys. Baby. Oh, baby. Cat. Am I only allowed to pay attention to you? the other camera is just a void of fur. Well, not exactly a void, but it's like a portal to the fur dimension. Right, kitty, right. I can only pay attention to you, not to the book. Is that the case? Yes, right here. Put your foot right here. Not on the keys. Baby. Here. There we go. Now you're across the keyboard. Okie dokie. Well, it's been a while since we have read some Pride and Prejudice. As far as I remember, last we left off with chapter 11, and we learned that Miss Bingley is into Mr. Darcy, and she's a bit jealous of... Oh, Beau. She's not jealous of Beau. She's well, I guess she's jealous of her beau, but she's jealous of Lizzie. And I recall last time we read, Miss Bingley was like, do you want to strut around the parlor in front of Mr. Darcy? Wouldn't that be great? But she tried to hide it or tried to veil it, and or was trying to embarrass her or something. I'm not remembering exactly what the goals were, but it was strange. She was like, you want to walk around? but then I remember my favorite part was she is like, oh, Mr. Darcy, you want to join us? And then he was like, nah, not really. And she's like, why don't you want to join us? And he's like, well, there's two reasons that you might be doing this. One is you're having some kind of secret meeting there and you're not wanting other people to hear, and I would get in the way of that. Number two is you want to look hot, and I can see you better from here. Which is pretty awesome. But yeah, so now we are on chapter 12. So what was the last little bit? The sisters were playing the piano. Looks like that was the last thing. Oh no. This might not work nearly as well as I wanted it to. Okay. There we are. Can I zoom in, or will that be an issue? Oh, that's enough, I think. Alright. Chapter 12. In consequence of an agreement between the sisters, Elizabeth wrote the next morning to her mother to beg that the carriage might be sent for them in the course of the day. But Mrs. Bennet, who had calculated on her daughter's remaining at Netherfield till the following Tuesday, she calculated that, oh, nice. I see Wolf says popping on as soon as the Twitch app updates. I'm happy to hear that. But yeah, she calculated it. I keep going into the red. I'm going to tone that down a little. As in, like, she wants Jane to stay there as long as possible to get into Mr. Bingley's good graces. And so her calculations aren't like, I think she's probably going to be sick this long. It's like, no, it's like the math mastermind thing. Like, I'm going to get him to marry her.
Kitty. Hi. What's your problem, Bo?
Alright. Mrs. Bennet, who had calculated on her daughter's remaining at Netherfield to the following Tuesday, which would exactly finish Jane's week, could not bring herself to receive them with pleasure before. Her answer, therefore, was not propitious? Is that what that is? Not propitious, at least not to Elizabeth's wishes, for she was impatient to get home. Let me look that up.
Meow. Yes. I'm going to look it up.
Hello, Ghoulish. It is great to see you here. Okay. Propitious. Advantageous. Okay. Where did that go? I can even leave it and it's not closing, which is really nice. Her answer, therefore, was not advantageous, at least not to Elizabeth's wishes, for she was impatient to get home. So Elizabeth isn't really enjoying her time with the sisters and Mr. Darcy. I don't, because it's been a while, I don't quite remember her reactions, but see, she seemed to be doing okay. She didn't seem to be hating everything and everyone. Alright. But, you know, that doesn't mean it's invalid for her to want to go home. That is completely valid. Mrs. Bennet sent them word that she could not possibly have the carriage before Tuesday. And in her postscript, it was added that if Mr. Bingley and his sister pressed them to stay longer, she could spare them very well. That's so funny. It's like, oh yeah, like, the carriage, it's like, it needs maintenance, like, needs its wheels greased, and it's not gonna be ready, you know, for Tuesday. And it's like, Mom, I wanna come home. Sorry, honey, just can't do it. And you know, if he wants you to stay a little longer, I can spare you. It's okay. You can stay. And she's like, oh, Mother, please, I wish to go home. Alright, against staying longer, however, Elizabeth was positively resolved, nor did she much expect it would be asked, and fearful, on the contrary, as being considered as intruding themselves needlessly long, she urged Jane to borrow Mr. Bingley's carriage immediately, and at length it was settled that their original design of leaving Netherfield that morning should be mentioned and the route made. That's awesome. It's like, our carriage's wheels are getting greased, so we'll use yours, Mr. Bingley. Mrs. Bennet, my plans have been ruined. The communication excited many professions of concern, and enough was said of wishing them to stay at least till the following day to work on Jane, and till the morrow. Their going was deferred. Miss Bingley was then sorry that she had proposed the delay, for her jealousy and dislike of one sister much exceeded her affection for the other. Wait.
Oh, kitty, okay. Kitty. Kitty cat. Oh, kitty cat. Oh my goodness, kitty cat.
You guys can still see it, I guess. But yeah, I was just confused because why would she be sorry that... First of all, when did Miss Bingley propose a delay? I'm not remembering what is being referred to there. Yeah, I want to read too. Now she is sitting right on top of the book. I don't remember her saying, like, you should stay, but maybe it's just been too long. And then, like, of course she'd be sorry she proposed that. Like, she doesn't like them. Like, she doesn't, as far as I could tell, she really doesn't like Elizabeth because Mr. Darcy's into her, and she doesn't like Jane that much either. She was complaining about her. So, like, it's, the way it's phrased, it just sounds like, aw, like, now I'm sad that I proposed it. It's like, why would you even propose that? There's no reason for you to ever want that, you know? This is my pillow. Yeah, exactly. I am the queen. This is my pillow. I really can't read until you get up, baby. Here. Oh, well. She allowed me to see more of it, but not quite enough. Right, kitty? Kitty, baby. You're so silly. There you go. There you go. Yeah, go on back there. Thank you. Thank you. All right. The master of the house heard with real sorrow that they were to go so soon, and repeatedly tried to persuade Miss Bennet that it would not be safe for her, that she was not enough recovered. But Jane was firm where she felt herself to be right. So why is Jane wanting to leave? Is it because she just thinks they overstayed their welcome? Yeah, because it seems like Elizabeth is the one who wants to leave, so I don't really know why Jane isn't being like, sure, if you want me to stay, Mr. Bingley, I'd love to stay, you know. We are waylaid by fickle feline follies, indeed. Alright, to Mr. Darcy, it was welcome intelligence. Elizabeth had been in Netherfield long enough. She attracted him more than he liked. That's awesome. And Miss Bingley was uncivil to her, and more teasing than usual to himself. He wisely resolved to be particularly careful that no sign of admiration should now escape him. Nothing that could elevate her with the hope of influencing his felicity. Nothing could elevate her. The hope of influencing his felicity. I don't know what that means. Sensible that if such an idea had been suggested, his behavior during the last day must have material weight in confirming or crushing it. Steadily to his purpose, he scarcely spoke 10 words to her through the whole of Saturday. And though they were at one time left by themselves for half an hour, he adhered most conscientiously to his book and would not even look at her. Awesome. So he's like, I like her. I don't like that I like her. And then he doesn't like that Miss Bingley is now teasing both of them. And so he's like, nope, I'm reading. I'm into my book. You know, not looking at her. All right. On Sunday, after morning service, the separation so agreeable to all, the separation so agreeable to almost all took place. Miss Bingley's civility to Elizabeth increased, at last very rapidly, as well as her affection for Jane. And when they parted, after assuring the latter of the pleasure it would always give her to see either at Longbourn or Netherfield, and embracing her most tenderly, she even shook hands with the former. Elizabeth took leave of the whole party in the liveliest of spirits. So Miss Bingley decides to be nice to them because they're leaving. I think I'm going to turn off the Discord chat. And yeah, so now that they're leaving, she's like, oh, come back anytime. But while they were there, she's like, I want you gone. They were not welcomed home very cordially by their mother. Mrs. Bennet wondered at their coming and thought, them very wrong to give so much trouble, and was sure Jane would have caught cold again. But their father, though very laconic in his expressions of pleasure, was really glad to see them. He had felt their importance in the family circle. The evening conversation, when they were all assembled, had lost much of its animation, and almost all of its sense, by the absence of Jane and Elizabeth. So that is, once again, Mr. Bennet being himself, being both sweet and rude in the same vein, because he's like, "Aw, like, I missed you guys." It's like, "Oh, that's cute," but it's like, I missed you guys because my other daughters are just, like, dumb, basic little girls, and dinner conversation wasn't that fun. They found Mary, as usual, deep in the study of thorough base and human nature. What? And had some new extracts to admire and some new observations of threadbare morality to listen to. So, when it says, like, deep in the study of thorough bass, I just think of music and, like, here she is jamming out on her bass guitar, kind of thing. I'm sure that's not what that means, but I don't know what it means. I guess I could try to look it up and see if it'll tell me, like, an older version of the word bass. Yeah, it's just like the lowest part of music, or like a low pitched instrument. So I don't know what it means in this particular case. Gossip, you think? Interesting. Yeah, so, but I do love the image of her jamming out on an electric guitar and at the same time being like, human nature, morality, and that's the second time they've mentioned the extracts. I was saying before, like, I don't know if this is almond extract. I don't know if this is, like, kind of the same thing as, like, I don't know, an abstract in a paper, that it's, like, a paper of some kind. I don't know, but it seems like she's just philosophizing. Anyways, Catherine and Lydia had information for them of a different sort. Much had been done and much had been said in the regiment since the preceding Wednesday. Several of the officers had dined lately with their uncle. A private had been flogged, and it had actually been hinted that Colonel Forster was going to be married. So, yeah, we have the local gossip for you, sis. Okay, so, like, the officers, they ate with Uncle. Aw, that's cool. Somebody was flogged, and it's hinted that Colonel Forster's gonna be married. What was that second one? The Colonel? No, go back. John was flogged today. What a good show. What? And Colonel Forster was one that one of them were into, right? I don't remember. I know they were into these guys, but I don't remember the names of the people they were specifically into.
Kitties, if I let you out, are you just gonna meow your little heads off to get back in again? I feel like that's the case.
Alright. Chapter 13. I hope, my dear, said Mr. Bennet to his wife as they were at breakfast the next morning, that you have ordered a good dinner today, because I have reason to expect an addition to our family party. Oh, do you mean, my dear? I know of nobody that is coming, I am sure, unless Charlotte Lucas should happen to call in, and I hope my dinners are good enough for her. I do not believe she often sees such at home. What does that mean? Does that mean she's not a good cook? Is she insulting her cooking skills? The person of whom I speak is a gentleman and a stranger. Mrs. Bennet's eyes sparkled. A gentleman and a stranger! It is Mr. Bingley, I'm sure. Why, Jane, you've never dropped a word of this, you sly thing. Well, I am sure I shall be extremely glad to see Mr. Bingley. But, good Lord, how unlucky! There is not a bit of fish to be got today. Lydia, my love, ring the bell. I must speak to Hill this moment. Oh, why does it have to be fish? It's just like, yeah, we got a gentleman coming over, but gosh darn it, we don't have any fish. It's like, there's other nice meals you can make. Why the fish? Whipping, the daily brutalization of the servants. True. Mrs. Bennet chill. Yeah. I doubt it, but I hope it's Mr. Darcy. That will be so fun if it is. All right. Oh, and then he's okay. I see. He says it's not. All right. It is not Mr. Bingley, said her husband. It is a person whom I never saw in the whole course of my life. And that's something I was thinking too, that he did say it was a stranger, and Mr. Bingley is not a stranger at this point. I don't know if he has met Mr. Darcy, though, because everybody else met him at the party, and I don't remember if he was at the party. Yeah. This roused a general astonishment, and he had the pleasure of being eagerly questioned by his wife and 5 daughters at once. After amusing himself some time with their curiosity, he thus explained, "About a month ago I received this letter, and about a fortnight ago I answered it, for I thought it a case of some delicacy and requiring early attention. It is from my cousin, Mr. Collins, who, when I am dead, may turn you all out of this house as soon as he pleases." Okay, I remember they were talking about that there's like some money troubles that they have, but I didn't really understand it. And so I guess that's actually going to be an arc, seemingly, or at least an important part of the story, which could be part of why she needs to marry Mr. Darcy, because he got that dough. He got that cash. "Oh, my dear," cried his wife, "I cannot bear to hear that mentioned. Pray do not talk of that odious man. I mean, he's coming to dinner. I do think it is the hardest thing in the world that your estate should be entailed away from your own children, and I am sure, if I had been you, I should have tried long ago to do something or other about it." Why didn't you? Like, even if she doesn't have the power to do something, she could talk to him about what to do, right? Fish is usually more expensive and therefore more auspicious. Either that or it's Friday and they're Roman Catholic. Interesting. I didn't know there was like a thing in Roman Catholicism of Fish Fridays. Taco Tuesdays and Fish Fridays. Is there a particular reason? I mean, sure there is, but what's the reason? Do you know it? Jane and Elizabeth attempted to explain to her the nature of an entail. They had often attempted before, but it was a subject on which Mrs. Bennet was beyond the reach of reason. She continued to rail bitterly against the cruelty of settling in an estate away from a family of 5 daughters in favor of a man whom nobody cared anything about. What? Oh, I see. So she's saying, like, that's really rude to have, like, this dude take this estate from, the 5 daughters, and nobody cares about you, Collins, basically. I think it's a fasting thing, abstain from meat. Gotcha. It is certainly a most iniquitous affair, said Mr. Bennet, and nothing can clear Mr. Collins from the guilt of inheriting Longbourn. But if you will listen to his letter, you may perhaps be a little softened by his manner of expressing himself. I don't think so. First of all, have you met your wife? No. Second of all, I don't think I would be very shocked if somebody who's like, this man is going to take away my house when my husband dies, and my, me and my 5 daughters will have nowhere to go. But he writes well, so I think I can forgive him. Like, no. Yeah, meow. She's under the table. You can come sit with me, Bella. As long as you don't sit on the book, you can sit with me. Oh, yeah, and I was going to say, so it seems like, going back to what I was saying about why can't you do something about it, I guess she just doesn't get it. So she's not able to understand the nature of these things, I guess, or willfully is trying not to. And Elizabeth and Jane are like, here's how it works, Mom. Like, that's not how it works. And she won't have it, you know. All right.
Oh, there she is.
No, that I am sure I shall not. And I think it was very impertinent of him to write to you at all, and very hypocritical. I hate such false friends. Why could not he keep on quarrelling with you, as his father did before him? Do we know the contents of the letter? Maybe they were a quarrel. You saw Mr. Collins is a terrible person, according to everyone. I mean, he's a terrible person according to Mrs. Bennet, but I don't know if Mr. Bennet thinks so. Indeed, he does seem to have some filial scruples on that head, as you will hear. And here we are. Okay. Hunsford near Westerham, Kent, 15th October. Should I give him like an annoying voice? Maybe I'll try.
Dear sir, the disagreement subsisting between yourself and my late honored father always gave me such uneasiness, and since I have had the misfortune to lose him, I have frequently wished to heal the breach, but for some time I was kept back by my own doubts, fearing lest it might seem disrespectful to his memory for me to be on good terms with anyone.
What? It would disrespect your dad's memory to like anybody? What? Did I read that right? So the Mr. Bennet and the late father had a disagreement, which made Collins uneasy. But now the dad's died. Okay, and he's saying, I want to heal the breach that I have with you. So I guess he's saying, like, it might be disrespectful to his memory for me to be on good terms with somebody he hated. But that phrasing of, like, it's just respectful to his memory to be on good terms with anyone. Though maybe I just didn't finish the sentence. Let's finish the sentence. All right. I was kept back by my own doubts, fearing lest it might seem disrespectful to his memory for me to be on good terms with anyone with whom it had always pleased him to be at variance. Okay, so I guess that is what that's saying. I just stopped too early. Then it's saying, like, somebody who he was at odds with, I shouldn't be nice to, basically. Mr. Bennet called wanting to obtain the property an iniquitous deed. I mean, he can think that Mr. Collins is doing something crappy, but not think he's a horrible person overall. So, yeah. So now I'm thinking of the Laura voice from Game Grumps. Yeah, it is kind of similar to that, isn't it? All right.
There, Mrs. Bennet. My mind, however, is now made up on the subject for having received ordination at Easter. Could someone remind me what ordination is? I've been so fortunate as to be distinguished by the patronage of the Right Honorable Lady Catherine de Borough, widow of Sir Louis de Borough, whose bounty and beneficence has preferred me to be valuable. Oh my goodness, this is a long sentence. Hold on. Okay. Kitty.
So he had some ritual happened at Easter, and he is now under the patronage of a lady and a knight, I think. A lady who's a widow of a knight. Bounty and beneficence is fun to say.
Whose bounty and beneficence has preferred me to be valuable rectory of this parish, where it shall be my earnest endeavor to demean myself with grateful respect towards her ladyship, and be ever ready to perform those rites and ceremonies which are instituted by the Church of England.
Oh, so he was ordained as, like, a minister. That kind of ordination, I think. Okay. I don't know if her ladyship refers to Mrs. Bennet or to Catherine de Bourgh. I think Catherine de Bourgh.
As a clergyman, moreover, I feel it my duty to promote and establish the blessing of peace in all families within the reach of my influence, and on these grounds I flatter myself that my present overtures of goodwill are highly commendable, and that the circumstance of my being next in the entail of Longbourn estate will be kindly overlooked on your side, and not... Well, hold on, let me comment on that.
Yeah, so it's like, I think my gestures of goodwill are highly commendable, and it's like, you saying that already makes them much less commendable. Ordination means he became a deacon or something similar. Gotcha. He's like, yeah, I think I'm pretty great. I think I'm being pretty nice right now, and I think that you should just overlook, this big deal that, I'm gonna take your estate away from your family who desperately needs it. So, like, can we just overlook that, all right. Will be kindly overlooked on your side and not lead you to reject the offered olive branch. What is the offered olive branch, mister? I cannot be otherwise than concerned at being the means of injuring your amiable daughters, and beg leave to apologize for it, as well as to assure you of my readiness to make them every possible amends. Okay, but of this hereafter, if you should have no objection to receive me into your house, I propose myself the satisfaction of waiting on you and your family, Monday, November 18th, by 4 o'clock, and shall probably trespass on your hospitality till the Saturday se'nnight following, which I can do without any inconvenience, as Lady Catherine is far from objecting to my occasional absence on a Sunday, provided that some other clergyman is engaged to do the duty of the day. I remain, dear sir, with respectful compliments to your lady and daughters, your well-wisher and friend, William Collins. You need out? Are you gonna meow? Hello, baby. You want out too, Bella? Okay, so maybe he actually does want to make amends. Maybe it's not just like useless words. Oh yeah, I want to look up, I'll see if I can look up Senite. Well, I see Senite with 2 N's. Okay, that says a week, so I'm guessing that's correct. It's probably just a different spelling. Computer, why are you struggling? Yeah, so he's like, I want to make amends and let's get together to chat. And then I know it's completely normal for that time, but just the phrasing of, I'll probably trespass on your hospitality for a week. I respect that. I kind of love it. It's like, yeah, you know what? I like to come over for dinner. To be honest, I am probably gonna make myself at home for like a week in your house. Which they are not gonna be happy about. Alright. William Collins. At 4 o'clock, therefore, we may expect this peacemaking gentleman. Yeah, he definitely does not dislike him. To call someone a peacemaking gentleman. Oh, that's so funny. We may expect this lovely little peacemaking gentleman. I can just imagine him turning to the room and all his daughters are glaring at him, said Mr. Bennet as he folded up the letter. He seems to be most conscientious and be a most conscientious and polite young man. Upon my word, and I doubt not, will provide a valuable acquaintance, especially if Lady Catherine should be so indulgent as to let him come to us again. I don't know who's talking. I guess Mrs. Bennet. There's some sense in what he says about the girls, however, and if
he is disposed to make them any amends, I shall not be the person to discourage him. All right, so they are cool with it. Oh, I don't remember the voice I gave Jane. Oh no. Though it is difficult, said Jane, to guess in what way he can mean to make us the atonement he thinks our due. The wish is certainly to his credit. Yes, this is the best point that has been made so far. It's great that he wants to make amends, but we don't know how or why. And the wish is to his credit, but, we need to hold off until we know what he intends to do. His computer's doing a big bad wolf impression. You mean it's like growling? Or huffing and puffing and trying to blow the house down. Nice. Alright, Elizabeth was chiefly struck with his extraordinary deference for Lady Catherine, and his kind intention of christening, marrying and burying his parishioners whenever it were required. Okay, so Elizabeth is the prejudice to our Pride and Prejudice. Well, either that or they both have it, but we've seen it the most from her so far. And she's like, here's this guy who wants to take their house away from him, and it's not confirmed what he wants to do. Like, he might arrive at the door and be like, I feel so bad, but I'm still gonna do it. It's like, I just came here to express my apologies for taking your house when you die. And it's like, so you're still gonna take the house? And I'm very sorry about that. That's what might happen when he arrives. We don't know. It's nice of him to want to make amends, but we just don't know what all that entails. And so it's so weird to me that Elizabeth isn't like that. Like what I'm thinking. What I'm thinking. Instead, she's like, he's like really nice about Lady Catherine, and like he wants to like christen, marry, and bury people, and that's great. It's like, yeah, exactly. You don't sound sorry. Exactly. But anyways, he must be an oddity, I think, said she. I cannot make him out. There is something very pompous in his style. And what can he mean by apologizing for being next in the entail? We cannot suppose he would help if he could. Can he be a sensible man, sir? No, my dear. Nah, he can't be sensible. Not possible. So, and now that's mixed signals, because now she's talking like I was talking. She's saying, like, I don't really know what he's all about, and there's something pompous in the way he's talking, and, like, what does he mean by apologizing? Do you think he's gonna help? That seems much more what I thought she was gonna say, but... So I guess maybe it's just like she's being very nuanced in her view, that she's like, he's really nice about Catherine, and he's nice. It's nice of him to want to like help his parish, but also we don't really know what he's about, I guess. Can he be a sensible man, sir? No, my dear, I think not. I have great hopes of finding him quite the reverse. There's a mixture of servility and self-importance in his letter, which promises well. I am impatient to see him. I'm going to keep reading. I think I'm going to go through this page before I come back to that, but I am confused. All right. In point of composition, said Mary, his letter does not seem defective. The idea of an olive branch perhaps is not wholly new, yet I think it was well expressed. To Catherine and Lydia, neither the letter nor its writer were in any degree interesting. It was next to impossible that their cousin should come in a scarlet coat, and it was now some weeks since they had received pleasure from the society of a man in any other color. As for their mother, Mr. Collins's letter had done away much of her ill will, and she was preparing to see him with a degree of composure which astonished her husband and her daughters. Yeah. So first of all, that's funny. They're literally they're seeing red, but not in the sense of like seeing violence and hatred. It's like, I won't talk to any man unless he's wearing red. Those soldiers, man. So, like,
Mr. Bennet called him, how did he say it? This peacemaking gentleman. And, like, first he introduced it by saying, just hear him out, because he writes really well, and you might be impressed by the way he expresses himself. And then he's like, we are inviting this peacemaking gentleman into our house. And now he's like, no, I don't think he can be sensible. I really hope he's not sensible. He's super pompous, and I can't wait to see him. So I don't know if that means they're intending to manipulate him somehow, that he's like, I'm glad that he's pompous because I can use that against him to try to get him to, like, give the house over, maybe. But it's very, very mixed signals. She loves a man in uniform. Yes, exactly. And then, it makes sense that Mary, the smart one, is like, you know what, he wrote well, just like Mr. Bennet said. Alright. Mr. Collins was punctual to his time, and was received with great politeness by the whole family. Mr. Bennet indeed said little, but the ladies were ready enough to talk, and Mr. Collins seemed neither in need of encouragement, nor inclined to be silent himself. He was a tall, heavy-looking young man of 25. I am forgetting what that means. Is that 25, or is that something else? Is that... I don't know. What was I gonna say? Yeah, I'm not remembering. His air was grave and stately, and his manners were very formal. He had not been long seated before he complimented Mrs. Bennet on having so fine a family of daughters, said he had heard much of their beauty, but that in this instance fame had fallen short of the truth, and added that he did not doubt her seeing them all in due time, well disposed of in marriage. Oh, he's just saying, like, they're gonna be married. They're not gonna be hard. It's not gonna be hard for them to find husbands because they're great, you know. This gallantry was not much to the taste of some of his hearers, but Mrs. Bennet, who quarreled with no compliments, answered most readily. I like that phrase, quarrel with no compliments. It's like, if he gave me a compliment, I'm not gonna argue with that. I'm curious who it is who's not happy, if that's Elizabeth or someone else. You're very kind, sir, I'm sure, and I wish with all my heart it may prove so, for else they will be destitute enough. Things are settled so oddly. Okay, that's great. That it's like, I hope they're married off because you're going to leave them destitute. You know, very, very pointed comment.
You allude, perhaps, to the entail of this estate.
Ah, sir, I do indeed. It is a grievous affair to my poor girls, you must confess. Not that I mean to find fault with you, for such things I know are all the chance in the world. There's no knowing how estates will go when once they come to be entailed.
I am very sensible, madam, of the hardship to my fair cousins, and could say much on the subject, but that I am cautious of appearing forward and precipitate. But I can assure the young ladies that I come prepared to admire them. At present I will not say more, but perhaps when we are better acquainted...
What? Hold on. So is he saying, like, yeah, I know I'm gonna be causing you hardship. I could say more, but I'm not gonna. Like, what? Like, He's and like, come to admire them. I don't know if that means something different, but it's like, yeah, I know I'm gonna, like, leave them destitute. I could say more on the matter, but I'm not gonna. I'm just here to admire them. Like, that takes him in firmly into sleazeball territory, if I'm interpreting that correctly. I also don't know if it's saying, like, he wants to marry one of them. I don't know if someone in the clergy, like, can marry. But that's a question. He was interrupted by a summons to dinner, and the girls smiled on each other. They were not the only object of Mr. Collins's admiration. The hall, the dining room, and all its furniture were examined and praised. and his commendation of everything would have touched Mrs. Bennet's heart, but for the mortifying supposition of his viewing it all as his own future property. Yep, that's what I was thinking. The dinner, too, in its turn, was highly admired, and he begged to know to which of his fair cousins the excellence of its cookery was owing. But here he was set right by Mrs. Bennet, who assured him, with some asperity, that they were very well able to keep a good cook, and that her daughters had nothing to do in the kitchen. He begged pardon for having displeased her. In a softened tone, she declared herself not at all offended, but he continued to apologize for about a quarter of an hour. Interesting. Okay. Cousins marrying during that time was more normal. Still gross. Yeah, I was forgetting that when I made that comment. You're right. But yeah, I don't know if him apologizing for a quarter of an hour gives him points that he like actually feels bad, or if it's him either trying to keep up appearances or just badgering her. So yeah, I don't know, man. I was already suspicious of him. Now I'm extra suspicious. All right. Chapter 14. During dinner, Mr. Bennet scarcely spoke at all, but when the servants were withdrawn, he thought it time to have some conversation with his guest, and therefore started a subject in which he expected to shine, by observing that he seemed very fortunate in his patroness. Lady Catherine de Borough's attention to his wishes and considering for his comfort appeared very remarkable. Why does Mr. Bennet think like that's a subject he's gonna shine? Or maybe he's saying like a subject that the guest is gonna shine in, that Mr. Collins is gonna shine in. I'm not sure. Mr. Bennet could not have chosen better. Mr. Collins was eloquent in her praise. Okay, so I do think it is him shining. The subject elevated him to more than usual solemnity of manner, and with a most important aspect he protested that he had never in his life witnessed such behavior in a person of rank, such affability and condescension as he had himself experienced from Lady Catherine. He had been graciously pleased to approve of both the discourses, which he had already had the honour of preaching before her. She had also asked him twice to dine at Rosings, and had sent for him only the Saturday before. Wait, hang on. She'd been graciously pleased to approve both the discourses. I don't know what that means. I guess like he's practicing his sermons for her. So she had also asked him twice to dine at Rosings, and had sent for him only the Saturday before to make up her pool of quadrille in the evening. Lady Catherine was reckoned proud by many people he knew, but he had never seen anything but affability in her. She had always spoken to him as she would to any other gentleman. She made not the smallest objection to his joining in the society of the neighborhood, nor to his leaving his parish occasionally for a week or two to visit his relations. She'd even condescended to advise him to marry as soon as he could. Okay, so question answered. He can get married and probably is looking to marry one of them. Provided he chose with discretion, and had once paid him a visit in his humble parsonage, where she had perfectly approved all the alterations he had been making, and had even vouchsafed to suggest some herself, some shelves in the closets upstairs. Weirdly specific, but okay, like... I feel like that would be better just left. Oh yeah, she suggested some changes, but it's like, she suggested some changes, some shelves upstairs. It's like, are we gonna see those shelves at some point? Is like a murder gonna occur and the shelves are gonna be important? Why are you telling me about the shelves? Alright. That is all very proper. That That is all very proper and civil, I am sure, said Mrs. Bennet, and I dare say she is a very agreeable woman. It is a pity that great ladies in general are not more like her. Does she live near you, sir? I was thinking more of the opposite. I was like, it's a pity that more ladies aren't respected like she is. So what do you mean it's a pity more ladies aren't like her?
The garden in which stands my humble abode is separated only by a lane from Rosings Park, her ladyship's residence.
Wait. So she only visited him once? She only visited his parsonage once, and they, like, live right next to each other? It seems a little odd. I think you said she was a widow, sir. Has she any family?
She has one only daughter, the heiress of Rosings, and of very extensive property.
Oh, okay, the heiress of Rosings. The heiress of lots of property. Ah, cried Mrs. Bennet, shaking her head. Then she is better off than many girls. What sort of young lady is she? Is she handsome? That might have been another, like, hey, she's better off than our daughters. You're putting them in this situation, you know.
She is a most charming young lady indeed. Lady Catherine herself says that in point of true beauty, Miss de Borrow is far superior to the handsomest of her sex, because there is that in her features which marks the young woman of distinguished birth. She is unfortunately of a sickly constitution, which has prevented her making that progress in many accomplishments, which she could not otherwise have failed of, as I am informed by the lady who superintended her education, and who still resides with them. She is perfectly amiable, and often condescends to drive by my humble abode in her little phaeton and ponies.
What does phaeton mean? Nope, missed a letter. Any of various light four-wheeled carriages, with or without a top, having one or two seats facing forward, used in the 19th century. Vintage automobile of the touring car type. Okay. Pretty sure I know what that looks like. I don't know if I can describe it better than that, but I'm picturing. Of course, frail Victorian women are too common. Yes, that tuberculosis aesthetic. I don't know if that's something you probably know about it, but I don't know if that's something that's common knowledge. But what is her name? I know her first name is Kat, but there's this person on YouTube, and I know it's just her name, and it's Kat something. She makes these really cool, really engaging historical videos, and you know what? I can just look. I don't know why I'm not checking. Oh no, it's not Kat. It's Kaz Rowe. TV is so in, yeah. Kaz Rowe, and I think it's her video on Crimson Peak that she talks about, like that kind of disease is like became an aesthetic, that there's something like gothic and almost like pretty about it in a weird way, like it's almost like this elegant way to die, and so you can really see that influence in a lot of gothic literature. But I highly recommend watching that video or any of her videos. They're fantastic. I think I've seen it. Nice. Nice. But let's me go down here. Yeah, so she's super pretty, but she's sickly, and so she can't do everything that she wants to do. Has she been presented? I do not remember her name among the ladies at court.
Her indifferent state of health unhappily prevents her from being in town, and by that means, as I told Lady Catherine myself one day, has deprived the British court of its brightest ornament. Her ladyship seemed pleased with the idea, and you may imagine that I'm happy on every occasion to offer those little delicate compliments which are always acceptable to ladies. I don't know how I feel about that statement. Like, it just feels like, oh yeah, like, I always make sure, it doesn't seem, truly benign. It seems kind of almost reads like a pickup artist being like, yeah, I always give ladies little compliments and stuff, like, whatever. I make sure I don't cross a line, but, I'm always trying to compliment the ladies, kind of thing. I have more than once observed to Lady Catherine that her charming daughter seemed born to be a duchess, and that the most elevated rank, instead of giving her consequence, would be adorned by her. What? She seemed born to be a duchess, and that the most elevated rank, instead of giving her consequence, would be adorned by her. Oh, okay, that he's saying, like, if she was at, like, the highest political rank, I think, that it wouldn't be a burden on her, it would look great on her. These are the kind of little things which please her ladyship, and it is a sort of attention which I conceive myself peculiarly bound to pay. It seems like you're the one who wants the attention, man. I don't trust you. You judge very properly. You sure, Mr. Bennet? Are you sure about that? Because I'm not. You judge very properly, said Mr. Bennet, and it is happy for you that you possess the talent of flattering with delicacy. I don't know if I'd call that a talent, Mr. Bennet. It might be being a sleazeball. I mean, it's not totally confirmed, but it's an option. May I ask whether these pleasing attentions proceed from the impulse of the moment, or are the result of previous study? Yeah, see, like, it's, he's asking, are you just, like, complimenting them because that's how you feel in the moment, or have you, like, studied how to pick up the ladies, and I don't know if he means it in the way I mean it. I don't know if he's kind of digging in and being like, is this, just benign, or are there ulterior motives? Don't know. I also see there's an ad break in progress, so I'll wait 30 seconds until it ends to keep going. Guess I'll check on the keys. Bella's just sitting there, being cute. Alright, it says it's over now. They chiefly arise from what is passing at the time, and though I sometimes amuse myself with suggesting and arranging such little elegant compliments as may be adapted to ordinary occasions, I always wish to give them as unstudied in an air as possible. So he's saying they do come in the moment, but he's also kind of saying I always want them to seem like they come in the moment, even if they don't. So you're not out of the woods yet, man. Mr. Bennet's expectations are fully answered. Okay, so he is testing him. His cousin was as absurd as he had hoped, and he listened to him with the keenest enjoyment, maintaining at the same time the most resolute composure of countenance, and accepted an occasional glance at Elizabeth, requiring no partner in his pleasure. That's awesome. Like, he's just looking at Elizabeth like, get a load of this guy. Like, he's a wackadoo, isn't he? That's awesome. Alright, by tea time, however, the dose had been enough. I've had my daily dose of Mr. Collins. And Mr. Bennet was glad to take his guest into the drawing room again, and when tea was over, glad to invite him to read aloud to the ladies.
You sure you want that voice reading aloud? Mr. Collins readily assented, and a book was produced. But on beholding it, for everything announced it to be from a circulating library. What does that mean? A circulating library. That sounds like a traveling circus, but a library. He started back and, begging pardon, protested that he never read novels. Kitty stared at him, and Lydia exclaimed... Oh, she's not exclaiming something. She's just exclaiming. It's just like, I don't read novels. Oh, you know what? That's fair. That's a fair reaction. Other books were produced, and after some deliberation, he chose Fortis's Sermons. Lydia gaped as he opened the volume. Before he had, with very monotonous solemnity, read 3 pages. She interrupted him. That's awesome. Maybe I'm not giving him quite the right voice, because it sounds like saying, and then the Lord said, let there be light. Might be more of what they're going for, but that's still funny. Do you know, Mamma, that my Uncle Phillips talks of turning away Richard, and if he does, Colonel Forster will hire him. My aunt told me so herself on Saturday. I shall walk to Meryton tomorrow to hear more about it and ask when Mr. Darcy comes back from town. Why do you care about Mr. Darcy? I don't know who Richard is. I don't remember. Oh, Denny. I didn't read that right. It says when Mr. Denny. I'm seeing Mr. Darcy everywhere. Alright, Lydia was bid by her 2 eldest sisters to hold her tongue, but Mr. Collins, much offended, laid aside his book. Oh, here we go. And said, I have observed how little young ladies are interested by books of serious stamp, though written solely for their benefit. It amazes me, I confess, for certainly there can be nothing so advantageous to them as instruction, but I will no longer importune my young cousin. What does that mean, importune? Yeah. To press or beset with solicitations, demand with urgency or persistence, to make improper advances towards a person, to beg for something urgently or persistently. Obsolete, to annoy. Obsolete, to press, impel. Okay, it's probably that one. It's probably I won't annoy her anymore, because he didn't seem to be like making a request, though it was. I mean, the request was, listen, but so yeah, now we're seeing the badness of his character in a different way. Now it's not so much the sleaziness side, but it's this, like, I don't know if it's in a like men are the head of the household and women are subject. I don't know if it's that far, but it's definitely in this like you don't care about this serious book that I'm reading, and it's all for your benefit. And like maybe there's a chance that he means that benignly. Like, maybe there's a chance that it's like, hey, like, sermons are good and helpful, and you're not listening, and that's not cool. Maybe he means it like that, but as I've stated on many occasions, I don't trust him. So I'm leaning more on that, like, judgmental side of the situation. All right. Turning to Mr. Bennet, he offered himself as his antagonist at backgammon. That is awesome. I mean, I know we use the word opponent nowadays. I don't know if they used it back then, but saying, I will be your antagonist at backgammon. I feel like we should bring that back. It's like, hello, would you like to play a game? I will be your antagonist today. Mr. Bennet accepted the challenge, observing that he acted very wisely in leaving the girls to their own trifling amusements. Mrs. Bennet and her daughters apologized most civilly for Lydia's interruption and promised that it should not occur again if he would resume his book, but it should not occur again if he would resume his book. But Mr. Collins, after assuring them that he bore his young cousin no ill will and should never resent her behavior as an affront, seated himself at another table with Mr. Bennet and prepared for backgammon. That's awesome. Like, I bear her no ill will. I bear her no ill will. I'm not upset. I'm not resentful. I'm gonna go over here and play games. I'm not gonna talk to her again. How many pages is the next chapter? I think I might be able to get through another one. I think it'll be alright. Oh, I was also going to look up the year when this book takes place. Oh, it's first published in 1813. Okay. I don't know if that's when it takes place, so presumably either it takes place around that time or, like, earlier. Alright. Oops, I went too far. Okay. Chapter 15. Mr. Collins was not a sensible man. As established, Mr. Bennet said that he is not capable of being sensible. Mr. Collins was not a sensible man. The deficiency of nature had been but little assisted by education or society. That's great. It's like, yeah, he is not sensible, he's not smart, he's not cool, and getting the best schooling that he could and getting help for society, neither of those things helped. The greatest part of his life having been spent under the guidance of an illiterate and miserly father. And though he belonged to one of the universities, he had merely kept the necessary terms without forming at it any useful acquaintance. Okay, so it's not all his fault. The subjection in which his father had brought him up had given him originally great humility of manner, but it was now a good deal counteracted by the self-conceit of a weak head, living in retirement and the consequential feelings of early and unexpected prosperity. A fortunate chance had recommended him to Lady Catherine de Bourgh when the living of Hunsford was vacant, and the respect which he felt for her high rank and his veneration for her as his patroness, mingling with a very good opinion of himself, of his authority as a clergyman, and his rights as a rector, made him altogether a mixture of pride and obsequiousness, self-importance, and humility. What is obsequiousness? Obsequious. Well,
Meow. Yes.
Characterized by showing servile obedience and excessive eagerness to please. Okay. So he is, like, prideful, but also eager to please, and he's self-important, but also humble. Interesting. And so it's basically saying, like, his father wasn't so great. And it seemed to maybe teach him some scruples at first, but, no, like, he be dumb, and he be prideful, and that's a problem. Having now a good house and very sufficient income, he intended to marry. In seeking a recollection with the Longbourn family, he had a wife in view. As he meant to choose one of the daughters if he found them as handsome and amiable as they were represented by common report. This was his plan. Oh, baby.
Kitty boo. Kitty boo. You silly.
She's rubbing against the microphone. I don't know how loud that is. Wish you could see that. She just licked my nose.
Kitty. Still on the keyboard, baby.
Now you're gonna get on my book, aren't you? Now you're gonna get on the book. There's the ear. There's the kitty ear. I see it. Yeah, you can come here. You can come sit with me. No, don't sit on the book. You are, aren't you? You are gonna sit on the book. Baby. Little queen. It's okay, Wolf. And most important part is we found out that yes, he indeed intends to marry one of the daughters. That's what we're just talking about right now. This was his plan of amends, of atonement, for inheriting their father's estate, and he thought it an excellent one, full of eligibility and suitableness, and excessively generous and disinterested on his own part. Oh boy, man. So he thinks, yeah, this is an excellent plan. It's full of eligibility and suitableness, and it's excessively generous and disinterested. What do you mean disinterested? I don't know why that would be a compliment. I don't know why that would be a good thing. Alright. His plan did not vary on seeing them. Mrs. Bennet's lovely face confirmed his views and established all his strictest notions of what was due in seniority. That's concerning. So he sees her face and he's like, I'm better than her and I deserve to have the house, I think. Gosh, Bella. This dude, he's not a good dude. Let's see if I can read. Now she's licking my forehead, man. I wish you could see it. It's so cute. Losing my place. Where am I? There I am. There I am in the camera. Oh, kitty. Oh, kitty. Oh, you are on the keyboard. Oh, you are on the keyboard. Actually, I wonder, is there a way to, turn off the keyboard so that... Because I don't need it while I'm streaming. And so is there a way to just turn it off so that she can step on it to her heart's content or even sleep on it if she wants while I'm streaming? Baby cat. Rubbing on the microphone again. Baby. I'm making it hard to read, baby. Well, if you guys can still see it, maybe I can just read from over here. Miss Bennet's lovely face confirmed his views and established all his strictest notions of what was due to seniority. And for the first evening, she was his settled choice. I'm sorry, what? What? Is he saying he wants to marry Mrs. Bennet, as in the mother, as in the person who is very much already married? Excuse me? Oh no, I see it. It says Miss Bennet right here. It doesn't say Mrs. Bennet. I read it wrong. They're all Miss Bennet though. When the book says Mrs. Bennet, we know who that means, but Miss Bennet is any of them. Is all of them. So who is he talking about? Okay, let's reread that part. His plan did not vary on seeing them. Miss Bennet's lovely face confirmed his views and established all his strict notions of what was due to seniority. And for the first evening, she was his settled choice. The next morning, however, made an alteration. For a quarter of an hour's tete-a-tete with Mrs. Bennet before breakfast, a conversation beginning with his parsonage house, and leading naturally to the avowal of his hopes that a mistress for it might be found at Longbourn, produced from her, amid very complacent smiles and general encouragement, a caution against the very Jane he had fixed on. why didn't you say Jane at first? Like, this, like, I'll be honest, like, that is a very poor writing choice in my mind, to say Miss Bennet when it can refer to 5 people. It is not hard to add Miss Jane Bennet's lovely face. There is no point in making that unclear. So I guess we're referring back to the conversation earlier where he's like, your daughters are great. Like, it's not going to be hard for them to get married. And Mrs. Bennet's like, you're totally right. And the girls are like, I think that's what it's referring to. So caution against the very Jane he had fixed on. As to her younger daughters, she could not take upon her to say. She could not positively answer, but she did not know of any prepossession. Her eldest daughter, she must just mention. She felt it incumbent on her to hint was likely to very soon be engaged. Why is that in quotes? Is that him talking? Who is talking? She also thinks her youngest daughters are basic because she also thinks they're not marriage material? What? And then, yeah, we know that she's probably going to get engaged to Mr. Bingley. Much better choice. Mr. Collins said only to change from Jane to Elizabeth. Yep, thought that was coming. It was soon done. Done while Mrs. Bennet was stirring the fire. Elizabeth, equally next to Jane in birth and beauty, succeeded her, of course. Miss Bennet treasured up the hint and trusted that she might soon have 2 daughters married. Oh, no, Mrs. Bennet. I know you want your daughters married, but not like this. No. I mean, I get, like, not wanting to lose the estate, and yes, like, marrying him makes it so that they don't have to lose it, but no. Mr. Darcy's the choice, not this dude. Mrs. Bennet treasured up the hint and trusted that she might soon have 2 daughters married, and the man whom she could not bear to speak to the day before was now high in her good graces. Lydia's intention of walking to Meryton was not forgotten. Every sister except Mary agreed to go with her, and Mr. Collins was to attend them, at the request of Mr. Bennet, who was most anxious to get rid of him. Yeah, okay, that's fair. It's fair that he wants to get rid of him, but don't force him on your daughters. I mean, don't make him go with your daughters. He's not a responsible chaperone. He is not someone you want with them. And was anxious to get rid of him and have his library to himself. For thither, Mr. Collins had followed him after breakfast, and there he would continue, nominally engaged with one of the largest folios in the collection, but really talking to Mr. Bennet with little cessation of his house and garden at Hunsford. Such doings discomposed Mr. Bennet exceedingly. In his library, he had always been... Kitty, what you doing? What you doing, Kitty? Oh no, cat. Oh no, cat. She messed something up. Are you... Oh gosh. Are you still... Is everything okay? Are you still able to see me and everything? I can keep screaming. I'll have to deal with it afterwards, but... You did mess something up. Everything seems fine. Okay, so I'll finish up, and hopefully we'll be able to undo it afterwards. Alright, can you see her? There she is. Cute little kitty. Cute little troublemaker. What are you doing? Why are you looking up at the desk? No. Oh, kitty boo.
Now she's sitting on the book. Yes, Miss Trouble. Now you're sitting on the book. Baby. Can I move it enough to be visible? I guess I can try. Maybe I can zoom out a little bit. Mr. Collins had followed him after breakfast, and there he would continue nominally engaged with one of the largest folios in his collection, but really talking to Mr. Bennet with little cessation of his house and garden at Huntsford. You have a nice house, buddy. You don't need the Bennets. Don't be bragging about your nice house to the people whose house you're gonna take away from them. Such doing discomposed Mr. Bennet exceedingly. In his library, he had been only sure of leisure and tranquility, and though prepared, as he told Elizabeth, to meet with folly and conceit in every other room in the house, he was sure to be free from them there. His civility, therefore, was most prompt in inviting Mr. Collins to join his daughters in their walk, and Mr. Collins, being in fact much better fitted for a walker than a reader, was extremely well pleased to close his large book and go. Are you a walker or a reader? I don't even completely know what that means. Like, he does not, I don't know, he doesn't seem like a gym bro. He seems more of a reader to me, especially with his comment on, like, how dare you interrupt my reading. So I don't know what's up with that. But Mr. Bennet is a mood here, that it's like, I know that every other room I'm gonna find this annoying little pest, but my library is my sanctuary. And so him coming in there, he's like, get out. I totally get it. But he wants a summer home. Exactly. We are blessed with cat butt, indeed. A reader, 100%. Yes, me too. If you couldn't tell. I was pleased to close his large book and go. Okay, can I? I'm nervous. In pompous nothings on his side, and civil essence on that of his cousins. In pompous nothings? What does that mean? In pompous nothings on his side, and civil assents on that of his cousins, their time passed till they entered Meryton. The attention of the younger ones was then no longer to be gained by him. Their eyes were immediately wandering up in the street in quest of the officers, and nothing less than a very smart bonnet indeed, or really new muslin in a shop window could recall them. I hope Mr. Darcy comes to rescue Elizabeth, because I feel like he's going to try to, talk to her alone. I was trying to avoid the weird angles, but Kitty had other plans. The attention of every lady was soon caught by a young man, whom they had never seen before, of most gentlemanlike appearance, walking with an officer on the other side of the way. The officer was the very, Mr. Denny, not Mr. Darcy. It was the very Mr. Denny, concerning whose return from London Lydia came to inquire. And he bowed as they passed. All were struck with the stranger's air. All wondered who he could be, and Kitty and Lydia, determined, if possible, to find out, led the way across the street, under pretense of wanting something in an opposite shop, and fortunately had just... Pompous nothings are big words that mean nothing, yeah. Oh, I can believe that. Oh my. Is this whole page one paragraph? Almost. All but the last bit. Gained the pavement when the two gentlemen turning back had reached the same spot. I mean, I don't know why they have to, pretend something else. We know that they want to see him. Mr. Denny addressed them directly and entreated permission to introduce his friend, Mr. Wickham, who had returned with him the day before from town, and he was happy to say had accepted a commission in their corps. This was exactly as it should be, for the young man wanted only regimentals to make him completely charming. I don't know what that means.
His appearance was greatly in his favor. He had all the best part of beauty, a fine countenance, a good figure, and very pleasing address. What does that mean? Like he has a nice house? Or like he has a nice way of speaking. The introduction was followed up on his side by a happy readiness of conversation. A readiness at the same time perfectly correct and unassuming, and the whole party were still standing and talking together very agreeably when the sound of horses drew their notice, and Darcy and Bingley were seen riding down the street. On distinguishing the ladies of the group, the two gentlemen came directly towards them. And began the usual civilities. Bingley was the principal spokesman, and Miss Bennet the principal object. Jane, I assume. He was then, he said, on his way to Longbourn on purpose to inquire after her. Ooh-hoo. Mr. Darcy corroborated it with a bow, and was beginning to determine not to fix his eyes on Elizabeth, when they were suddenly arrested by the sight of the stranger, and Elizabeth, happening to see the countenance of both as they looked at each other, was all astonishment at the effect of the meeting. Oh, baby. Oh, cat. Oh, cat. Well, now I can zoom in again. Kitty cat. Kitty cat. There's trouble. I don't know if the stranger is Denny or Collins. Happening to see the countenance of both as they looked... Oh, no, go back. Mr. Darcy corroborated it with a bow, and was beginning to determine not to fix his eyes on Elizabeth, when they were suddenly arrested by the sight of the stranger, and Elizabeth, happening to see the countenance of both as they looked at each other, was all astonishment at the effect of the meeting. Both changed colour. One looked white, the other red. Mr. Wickham, after a few moments, touched his hat, a salutation which Mr. Darcy just deigned to return. What could be the meaning of it? It was impossible to imagine. It was impossible not too long to know. Hi, kitty. So it's Wickham. It's not Collins or Denny. It's Wickham. Address probably means clothing. Yeah, perhaps. Another minute, Mr. Bingley, but without seeming to have noticed what passed, took leave and rode on with his friend. Mr. Denny and Mr. Wickham walked with the young ladies to the door of Mr. Phillip's house. I thought they both looked at him weird. Oh, no. Well, yeah, it says both changed color. Oh, I guess it's Mr. Darcy and Mr. Wickham are both... They're both going white. Well, one of them's going white, the other is going red, which is a fun description. I am confusion. Yeah, exactly. Sometimes this book really confuses with its pronouns. Or titles, I guess. It's not all pronouns. Mr. Denny and Mr. Wickham walked with the young ladies to the door of Mr. Phillip's house. They made their bows, in spite of Miss Lydia's pressing entreaties that they would come in, and even in spite of Mrs. Phillip throwing up the parlor window and loudly seconding the invitation. I know it means like throwing up the window itself so that she can shout, but it just sounds like Mrs. Phillip sticks her head out the window, pukes, and then is like, "Come in!" Mrs. Phillips was always glad to see her nieces, and the two eldest, from their recent absence, were particularly welcome, and she was eagerly expressing her surprise at their sudden return home, which, as their own carriage had not fetched them, she should have known nothing about. Wait, hold on. Oh, I see. So it's this, they were at the Bingleys because she was sick. She should have known nothing about if she had not happened to see Mr. Jones's shop boy in the street, who had told her that they were not to send any more drafts to Netherfield because the Miss Bennets were come away. When her civility was claimed towards Mr. Collins by Jane's introduction of him, she received him with her very best politeness, which he returned with as much more, apologizing for his intrusion without any previous acquaintance with her, which he could not help flattering himself, however, might be justified by his relationship to the young ladies who introduced him to her notice. Mrs. Phillips was quite awed by such an excess of good breeding, but her contemplation of one stranger was soon put an end to by exclamations and inquiries about the other. What? Of whom, however, she could only tell her nieces what they already knew. Mr. Denny had brought him from London, and that he was to have a lieutenant's I think it's lieutenant in Britain. Lieutenant's commission in the Shire. What? The Shire. Right, I guess it's Shire. She'd been watching him the last hour, she said, as she walked up and down the street, and had Mr. Wickham appeared, Kitty and Lydia would certainly have continued the occupation. Yeah, hobbits, exactly. But unluckily, no one passed the windows now, except a few of the officers, who, in comparison with the stranger, were become stupid, disagreeable fellows. What? Some of them were to dine with the Phillipses the next day, and their aunt promised to make her husband call on Mr. Wickham and give him an invitation also, if the family from Longbourn would come in the evening. This was agreed to, and Mrs. Phillips protested that they would have a nice, comfortable, noisy game of lottery tickets. Nice, comfortable, and noisy don't fit for me. And a little bit of hot supper afterwards. The prospects of such delights was very cheering, and they parted in mutual good spirits. Mr. Collins repeated his apologies in quieting the room, and was assured with unwearying civility that they were perfectly needless. I guess, we don't need anything, I think. As they walked home, Elizabeth related to Jane what she had seen pass between the two gentlemen, but though Jane would have defended either or both, had they appeared to be wrong, she could no more explain such behavior than her sister. Mr. Collins, on his return, highly gratified Mrs. Bennet by admiring Mrs. Phillips' manners and politeness. He protested that except Lady Catherine and her daughter, he had never seen a more elegant woman, for she had not only received him with the utmost civility, but had even pointedly included him in her invitation for the next evening, although utterly unknown to her before, something he supposed might be attributed to his connection with them, but yet he had never met with so much attention in the whole course of his life. What was I gonna say? I mean, you can't really be like, hey, I'm inviting y'all to a thing, and just be like, everyone but you. Because, I know for me, if I were in that situation, I would not want to invite him, but I would kind of have to, because he's there in the room. So, I mean, I guess it is still counted as polite. But I feel like it would be very rude to be like, no, you can't come, because he's hearing about it. But, yeah. I think I'm gonna leave it there. I'm not... Oh yeah, this is a longer one too. I'm not very confident that I will get through another one in the proper time. I only have 20 minutes, so I'm not certain I can finish the next one in 20 minutes. But this was a good time for me, at least. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I was glad to be able to do a little stream during the day and get back to this, and I'm very glad that you were able to join me, Wolf. It was nice chatting with you. So yeah, I will see you all next time, whenever that happens to be. Oh, I was gonna ask. Maybe I should ask. I don't know. I'll just ask. I was curious. For the classics, I was thinking that I would just like stick to one book and make sure I finish it before I go on to the next book. But I'm curious, would you guys be opposed to the idea of me alternating, of me like reading two books at the same time and alternating between them? Or is that something that would bother you? Would you be like, no, like let's just stick to one and only start a new one when we continue on? The reason I ask is because I have been deeply engrossed in the Moriarty manga, which makes me want to read the original Sherlock Holmes while that's where my brain is, because I have never read it. And granted, I do need to buy a copy, and I want to buy a copy that, looks nice, and so it might already be a month, before I have the money to buy that anyways, but it's just just something I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on if I wanted to do that, if you'd be okay with alternating or want me to stick with one. Ghoulish says, I think you just stick to one. Mako says, would it be that much different between switching between games? I mean, that's all on you, right? So that's, I don't think I would mind. I mean, I could only tell, once I tried it. The question is if you guys would mind. Right, Kitty? Also, welcome. I'm sorry that it seems like you're joining right as I'm saying goodbye. But yeah, I can also ask this again, like on the writing group stream or something, but just thoughts, just things. But anywho, I hope that you've had a good time. I will see you guys next time.